tonight's City Council Candidate Forum, and we'd like to introduce our panel of candidates. As many of you, we'd also like to welcome and acknowledge any candidates or elected officials who are watching. Normally, we would ask you to stand and be acknowledged, but these are not normal times and we cannot see you. So just know that we appreciate your service and you don't need to wave. As many of you know, Respond to Racism was formed following a racist incident involving fellow community members that compelled us to sit down and talk about racism in our city. Our mission is to educate and empower Lake Oswego residents and institutions with the tools to combat racism in all of its forms and make Lake Oswego in Oregon a better place to live and or visit for residents and visitors of all races and ethnicities. We hold monthly community meetings, protests, rallies, celebrations, and have committees working on programs such as police reform, monitoring city meetings, and engagement with our youth. We invite you to join us. And now, my friend, Lisa Adato.
Thank you, Willie. And we're thrilled to be here with Respond to Racism with these wonderful candidates and our community. The Lake Oswego Sustainability Network was formed in 2013 with the purpose of promoting sustainable practices here in Lake Oswego. Goal is to create a safe and healthy environment for ourselves and for future generations. We do this through the triple bottom line of environmental safety, prosperity, social equity for the residents of Lake Oswego. We hold events, engage in community through outreach. We have multiple action teams, and some of our teams are a schools team, an interfaith team, a transportation team, a climate team, and we have others as well. We work with partners throughout the city on various projects. For example, our team members have successfully served on school committees to promote energy savings in the schools and curriculum changes. We helped pass the city climate plan. We've advocated for electric cars, tree inventories, saving water, and much more. Here in Lake Oswego, there's been a groundswell of community advocacy, engagement, and support among residents and city and school officials to chart a more inclusive and sustainable course for the future of Lake Oswego. And that brings us to why we're here tonight. We're hosting this forum because we want to play a role in helping voters make an informed decision about the future of the city that we all love. Lake Oswego has a lot of strengths as a community. Our schools, our neighborhoods, parks, and the heart and spirit of people, to name a few. However, we do not have a great reputation when it comes to issues relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this reputation is perpetrated today, as you all know, if you read the Lake Oswego Review or follow posts on social media and next door. In addition, we've seen a lot of support for sustainability among our city leaders and among residents. But we know as residents of a suburban area that we have a lot more to do to reduce toxics and climate emissions so that we can pass along a safe environment for future generations. Back to you, Willie.
Thank you. We're all here tonight because we care deeply about this community. The City Council plays a key role in charting the course for our city. This includes fostering a welcoming and inclusive environment for all community members. There are 3 City Council seats, and we'll all be voting to fill them in the upcoming election. There are 5 active candidates. The top 3 votes getters will win the 3 seats. We're very fortunate to have so many candidates who have a passion for making Lake Oswego a great place to live. We'd like to thank all of you for being with us tonight and for being willing to step up and dedicate yourselves to civic service. Before we get started, a couple of announcements. We will take a 5-minute break midway through the forum, and tonight's forum is being recorded on YouTube, so please let your neighbors and friends know all about it. Again, let's get started. I'd like to introduce our two esteemed moderators for the evening. Ella Feathers is a Lake Oswego High School graduate and a freshman at the University of North Carolina. And Barbara Chen is a senior at Lake Oswego High School. And with that, I'd like to pass the mic to our moderators who will briefly share the format for the evening and get us started.
Thank you, Willie and Lisa. Here's the agenda for tonight. When we begin, each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves and give their opening statement. We'll go in alphabetical order. After opening statements, we'll then ask the candidates questions. There will be varying response times ranging from 1 to 2 minutes. We'll let you know how much time is allocated to respond to each question. We'll alternate who answers first by going alphabetically, starting with a different candidate each time. We'll call your name when it's your turn to answer. Partway through the forum, we'll do a lightning round, which we'll explain when we get there. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Terry Kramer will be our timekeeper. For 1 minute response times, the timekeeper background will turn from green to yellow, indicating you have 15 seconds left on the clock. You will see a red background when your time is up. For 90 seconds or longer time responses, the timekeeper background will turn from green to yellow, indicating you have 30 seconds left on the clock. You will see a red background when your time is up. At that time, please finish your sentence and pass the mic. We thank you in advance for making the job of our timekeeper easy by adhering to the time allotment. Please do not make us mute you. In the event that a candidate needs a question repeated, please ask and we will repeat the question. So now we'll start our conversation with the candidates.
We will begin with opening statements. Each candidate will introduce themselves and give an opening statement. Emma will start, followed by Melissa, then Masen, then Aaron, then Rachel. You each have 1 minute for your opening statement. Emma, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Hi, my name is Emma Berg. You might recognize me from 2 years ago when I ran for this position. And I'm running again on the same principles. I'm a mom with kids in our public schools, and I feel like a lot of people move to our community for our public schools, and we need representation on council for that. I'm also a resident in Mountain Park, where we have about 20% of our community residing, and I'm not sure we've ever had a counselor from this neighborhood. So that's another reason. Again, it's about representation. So running on the same values as last time, but in the last couple of years, I've really helped to invest in the community. I got to be a part of Leadership Lake Oswego through the Chamber of Commerce, and I was a tri-chair after I graduated for a year in that program, and I'm a local business owner as well. So I'm really invested here. I want to continue to see our community thrive and get better for generations to come. So vote for me, Emma Berg. Thanks for having me.
Melissa, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you so much to RTR and LOSN and of course my fellow candidates. My name is Melissa Fireside and I am running for Lake Oswego City Council because I've been inspired by the voice of the people. What I've heard consistently is that there is a disconnect between our city government and the will of the people. And this has been evident from chatting with grassroots organizations all the way to people at the Lake Corp. People's voices are not being heard. I would like to shift the dial on that and treat this amazing job as a collective vision for what vitality for all of Lake Oswego can actually be. As we speak tonight on social issues, I want you to think about a couple of voices you would want to represent you on our city council. Who has shown up consistently and taken time, effort, energy to build community, empathize, and really share in the joy of life with you? We need ambassadors like that on our city council that have done the heavy lifting, not when they decided to run for office, but when no one was looking. I would love to earn the privilege of being your voice at every table where decisions are being made. Thank you.
Masen, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, LOS, and respond to racism. Good evening, my fellow candidates. My name is Masen Boop, and I'm running for city council because I love the city of Lake Oswego.
Listen, you're covering your camera. There we go.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So I'm running for city council because I love this city. I consider myself as a candidate of hope, of love. I love this city, and my priorities, if I'm elected, is, to work hard on the aspect of Falkland as education, as our parks and recreation, and our city's infrastructure. I also believe in diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. I would work hard for those to be taken care. I love what our city is doing for now. We just come to add to their work. I want to be part of that job, to continue the work on equity, on DEI, and on catering for our environment. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thank you to the candidates for, last several months. We're almost to the finish line. So thank you all for bringing out the best in myself and all of you. I'm a father of 2 Lake Oswego School District children. And I'm focused not just on the now of Lake Oswego, but the future. I have a passion for Lake Oswego, a drive to create a welcoming social and business environment for all who want to live, work, play, and belong to our community. I'm not an expert in everything. I bring differing views to the table. I listen, I collect, and I analyze good information, and I make sound strategic decisions based on those facts. I've been on the budget committee for Lake Oswego 4 years now. My priorities are simple, and they're the priorities of what Lake Oswego needs and wants. Budget responsibility, roads and pathways, safe routes to our schools, turfed parks for our kids, a pool, and getting our business community back on their feet and successful. I really look forward to tonight, and good luck to everybody. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Rachel Verdick, and for the last 20 years, Lake Oswego has been my home. For the past 10 years, I have owned my own building design business in town, and I have been actively engaged in our community. My husband and I chose to move back to his hometown because of the village-like feel, its parks, schools, and the sense of community. Yet all these wonderful aspects do not minimize the fact that we have serious issues that must be addressed. We are experiencing a time of great uncertainty, but it is in times of uncertainty that with the right leadership, positive change can occur. As a city councilor, I will work to actively reach out to all members of our community to listen and learn from them, because I believe that when we come together with diversity of thought and ideas, that we can become a stronger Lake Oswego for everybody.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Now we'll begin our questions. For the first question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Melissa, then Masen, then Aaron, then Rachel, then Emma. The question is, low carbon transportation options such as electric vehicles, buses, and bikes are critical to reducing carbon emissions, and many low carbon modes are cheaper than the more polluting options. What actions could you support to move our city towards its goal of being carbon neutral? Melissa, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
So one of the major opportunities I think we have within our city because of our location and proximity is intracity transit, which is something I see as a public and private partnership, which is an opportunity to have green mobility. So we are a car dependent city, but wouldn't it be so fantastic if we could get on a continuous route that connected our whole city to be able to, from where I'm at in Hallinan to get over into Lake Grove and experience the business opportunities there. I think that would be an amazing investment for the city to make. I also think as we look forward to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, that we partner with Clackamas County. They have an amazing climate action plan just now back in August of 2020, so just a couple months ago. They actually ratified that plan and they have a list and have actually quantified the areas of where we can reduce our dependency and how we can move forward. So I really see this as a regional partnership as well as a city partnership. And the other part too is that, there are innovative things that we can do. We can have city walk days. We can have opportunities for people to use our routes and really invest in that way, because we could have a more interconnected city that way by investing in pathways, safe routes to school, all of those things. And so I really look forward to working with those options and partnering with regional leaders to get things like that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sen, when you're ready, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the Lake Oswego Sustainability Committee did a great job with the city to ratify the climate plan in 2020. I would continue and build up into what they've already done. If I am elected, I would work on to making, the city have better biking and walking paths, including safe routes to schools. These are fundamental, and also to help in that also we have to protect our tree cover. It's very important. Lake Oswego is a city of trees and this need to be protected. I also will work on recycling the construction waste. It's one of the carbon footprints that we need to work on. It's very important. Promoting also the bus transportation by creating better bus shelters and park and ride areas. Like my school has a park and ride area. If we can multiply that to promote bus transportation, it would be great. And I agree with the LOSN with their idea of an intracity bus. I would work to have that happen. I also would work very hard to work on connectivity and housing, because if people can live where they work, we would be able to reduce the carbon footprint. This is very important. And as a city council, I would work to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, when you're ready.
Long-term goals are fine, but the rubber hits the road when we can break down those long-term goals into achievable short-term goals. We need to act and work diligently on checking those things off the list. I'm not one to sit around and let goals just sit on the shelf. I'm going to rely on science and I'm going to rely on experts. Through my work, I'm fortunate at the Fortune 500 company where I work that I have access in a deep network of the world's sustainability experts. And I'm going to rely on them to give us and myself the knowledge and the learning that we need to make Lake Oswego great and make Lake Oswego sustainable for our children and our children's children. We got to do it at an aggressive pace. That's the only way to do it. I want electric vehicle charging stations all over the city. I want to partner, like a couple of the other candidates mentioned. I think we should partner with our neighboring cities and create a regional sustainability co-op and learn from each other's experiences and share resources by pooling the resources together. Roads, pathways, safe routes to schools. Let's make new roads so we don't have to keep replacing them and resurfacing them. And I'd like to incentivize our students to walk and ride to school, possibly by creating incentives by new equipment for their schools if they achieve their goals, subsidizing their lunches, or enabling our businesses to get more business by paying for our students to get access to meals at some of our struggling restaurants to help achieve two goals with one. That's it.
I would first like to start by commending the group of individuals who came together to write the climate action plan. It's an excellent plan with phenomenal ideas in it that now we need to take action and implement. Some of them specifically relating to transportation that I think we can start with very quickly is to add more bus shelters so that when people are wanting to take the bus, that it's actually comfortable and you're not getting soaking wet as you wait for that bus to come. So I think that's a very simple solution that we can implement right away. We definitely need to connect our city even more with our paths and trails and safe routes to school, because again, that can keep less cars on the road, but still allow us ways to get around our city. I would love to look into different possibilities for how we can commute from Lake Oswego to Portland. So is there a boat commute possibility? Is there something other than a bus? Do we need new bus lines? We need to be very creative and look to all those different solutions to make that work. We also need to seek to create a culture of sustainability within our city and within the community. And the city needs to lead those efforts. And that can start by empowering city employees on the decisions that they make around sustainability in their everyday jobs and what they are doing. And again, like others have said, we need to partner with our region and make it a more powerful initiative so that we can be a leader in sustainability within our community. Thank you.
As Rachel said, yeah, there's a lot to commend in our area, especially the folks with the Sustainability Network. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to the electric vehicle fair, and that just really motivated me. When I'm able to replace my minivan, I'm absolutely going the electric vehicle route. And even 2 years ago, I was saying we should also have more of those charging stations and put them in premier parking areas downtown, so people are even more incentivized to switch to those modes of transportation. I'm glad our city has already been doing a lot of good things, but like with anything, we can always improve. So I think it's strengthening those relationships we have in the community and with neighboring communities as well, so that we can make them even stronger and long lasting. Other things we can do, I've heard a couple other candidates mention, which I also said 2 years ago, were the covered bus shelters. We're a very rainy climate much of the year, and that's definitely something that can deter people from taking more earth-friendly transportation like that. One thing we had since 2 years ago, though, is COVID, of course, and I know a lot more people are reticent to do the group rides and ride sharing things. So I think we also need to take in mind what's going in our culture currently, as well as those long-term strategies, so that we can really do what's best for our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Masen, then Aaron, then Rachel, then Emma, then Melissa. The question is, for years, Lake Oswego has had the reputation of refusing to support affordable housing for low-income people. Would you be in favor of putting city tax money towards low-income housing? And what is your vision for low-income housing in Lake Oswego? Please be specific. Masen, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Thank you very much. I think everybody knows that the housing is an issue, and but we have also to be very realistic. As I was saying, as a city councilor, I would, have, careful stewardship of our city's resources. Lake Oswego cannot afford to put money like, in some as in affordable, but there is a way we can do it, working with developers, working with builders to create affordable housing. And I've always said that when I ran the last time, I was thinking of that it's not fair for many people who live in this city who are aging and want to live in smaller housing and cannot find the opportunity. So I would support that. I just want, to be very careful to see the budget. I have to see if our budget can afford to put money on that. I know we have possibilities on affordable housing. It's in most of my, I want to 90 seconds cannot give me, but yes, I support affordable housing. I want our students, when they come home, to find places to work. There are legislation by the state that will help on that, like the House Bill 2001 that I support. Thank you. Yeah.
Do I support low-income housing in Lake Oswego? I support affordable housing in Lake Oswego. I want to see a partnership with developers, stakeholders, neighborhood associations, so we can start looking at ways to encourage younger families to move out to Lake Oswego, because that's what brings diversity. I want to make sure that our community members who are on fixed incomes are not taxed out of their homes, and we have places for them to go to continue to be parts of our community. We should never be excluding people from buying homes here. We should never be forcing people out. Affordable housing has many names, many titles. I would like to know more about what we mean by affordable housing before we allocate money to it. I think in the immediate term, we need to be focused more on getting our businesses up and running again and successful post-COVID. I think that's an immediate need. No one's going to want to move here if we don't have a community to move to.
I think affordable housing is an important topic for us to discuss as a community. And House Bill 2001, which the state recently passed, I think offers a very unique opportunity for us to create some affordable housing throughout our community. And I think it can be done very strategically and carefully, and it can allow us, if done right, to maintain the sense of place in our neighborhoods while allowing a variety of housing sources. So one of the things I think is very important to do when we think of housing and the impact of House Bill 2001 is to think, how are we going to rewrite our code to meet the standards of that bill? And I think we need to work closely as a city with our neighborhoods, as well as looking at different types of ways to write our codes, specifically looking at form-based codes, which works with the current idea of what is the size of a single family home, and not allowing new buildings with multiple units to exceed that size. So you can maintain the sense of place of a neighborhood while increasing the number of units. And you can also determine of how many units and where they can go. So you could keep fourplexes closer to the business districts and the transportation and gradually ease them into the single family neighborhoods. So again, we can ease the impact on infrastructure and create more diversity for our students, our seniors, and our young families to be able to come and integrate into our city.
So my website is electemmaburke.com, and the changes have been made to reflect this current election, but the only page that is the same are my issues page. So if you go there, you'll see I answer this question, and I still think it's the best idea for the cottage village model. And a resident in the area brought that idea to me, and I haven't found a better one since. And as you all know, I speak to anyone and everyone that's willing to have a conversation. And even in my Home Builders Association conversation this session, they enjoyed the idea of that middle housing model too. And the concept is that you have a shared space where different types of housing are put on the same land. So there's a shared green space, shared parking, enough to accommodate everybody, but then the structures within that area are different. So you're able to accommodate the families who have maybe entered the empty nest stage of their life, and they're wanting to downsize from their home that held a family. You've got family size homes with that single family model. And then you've also got more of that, more of the mixed use for folks. And as a resident who lives in a condo complex in the Mountain Park neighborhood, I know it can be done really well. Mountain Park was very intentionally created, and there's a lot of mixed use there. And I think as long as we're looking forward and really keeping in mind that we want to attract diverse community members, there's a way to make that happen. Thank you.
So I've been advocating at the county and city level for almost 2 years in regard to housing. My policy proposal has consistently been trifold. We need to acquire, renovate, and protect existing inventory throughout all neighborhoods that are close to transit and amenities so that we encourage less vehicle dependency. And we need to build workforce housing in a transit-ready corridor. We also need to ensure that zoning changes like the proposals made at Mary's Woods are actually authorized. The bottom line is if we just focus on building affordable housing and don't actually look at the footprints and involve the neighborhoods in this conversation, then we're not really meeting the needs of people and families right now. We need to have a council elected that will have a laser focus and understand that we have about 20 months before we cycle through another election, and we must direct our city manager to go out and do tangible things that impact the vitality of all of Lake Oswego. And so this is not a singular endeavor. I, as one councilor, cannot do this alone. We need a majority of people elected that are interested and have shown up to do the work and support working families and other demographics in need. And so the bottom line is, in order for us to achieve diverse ecosystems throughout our community, they have to be supported at multiple levels, whether we're talking about aging populations, people who have just graduated, new families, single folks. We need to make sure that those investments are made and that we're supporting all of Lake Oswego. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer. We'll start with Erin, then Rachel, then Emma, then Melissa, then Miss N. The question is, each city councilor represents every Lake Oswego citizen. How would you provide ways to hear from underrepresented groups such as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, and low-income citizens in our community? Erin, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Manny Espinoza, who some of you know, is a very good friend of mine. He's an endorser of me, and he's also the co-chair of the Lake Oswego School District DE&I and A committee. He has been instrumental in helping me understand what our community needs. We need to make the DE&I committee permanent on the city council, first and foremost. We need to ensure that the RFP process and procurement process is open and accessible to minority business owners. I'm all about listening to everybody. That's what my candidacy is about, bringing everyone to the table to listen and to learn. If we want to create a true community of belonging, we need our underrepresented community members to see others that look like them in our city, pure and simple. We need to set us at the city level. We need to set aside resources and grants to encourage minority-owned business owners. And we need to have best-in-class roads and pathways so people want to move here. We also need to look deeply into our police practices and remove anything where people are being treated inequitably and take corrective action to change that.
I agree with Erin. I think one of the first things we need to do is to transform the task force, the DEI task force, into a full-time board. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are not a one and done. It's just not changing one or two policies. It's a journey, and it takes reflection and dedication. And we have to do that as individuals as well as a city. And we need to have a DEI board that is empowered to make change and make progress in our city, as well as be a place where citizens can come and explain their concerns and their experiences. But we can't expect everyone just to come to us. We also need to reach out to the variety of groups within our community. We need to be attending the Respond to Racism meetings. We need to reach out to the Chinese citizens. We need to reach out to all different groups, different income levels, everyone within our city, and seek what they have to say and what their needs are. We need to reach out, we need to listen, and we need to learn from them so that we can establish policies to help them.
So I've had the privilege of serving on both of our community's diversity, equity, and inclusion groups since their formation. And so even before the last election in 2018, I was already serving on the school district's advisory committee, and the chair at the time nominated me for community engagement, and the group elected me to that role. And that meant that I was looking into reaching more of the community and seeing how they wanted us to go. It was reaching out to neighborhood associations and groups that I personally knew through my involvement with business community, people who are more low income, parents in our public schools. It was just a big variety of folks. And since then, of course, the task force has come along with the city, and that's been very fast moving. We meet more often than the school board one. And so I think we're going to be producing some good results to inform council. And I'm hoping they take those recommendations, one of which I assume will probably be making it a full-time committee, which I've also been advocating for the last couple of years.
So here's the thing about equity, diversity, and inclusion. I think for a long time, we have taken these very nuanced approaches and tried to lay them over a foundation within our city that doesn't work. We've politicized it, and we've turned it into a tagline instead of actually focusing on the humans within our system that are suffering. And so from my perspective, the city has to monetize EDI, and we need a chief equity officer, not under human resources, not under the city manager, but someone who is actually at a C level and is going to actually do the work, the inclusive work that the city needs to do. And we can't just keep handing this off to politicians who are going to use it as an opportunity to attach it to their platform and not really have the commitment, understanding, education, and commitment to getting it done. And so in addition to that, we need to have an EDI board that is actually a working board. And what it does is it informs council. So at the same time we get a staff report, we get an EDI report. So we can qualify the lived experience of every code, directive, and initiative that we vote on. And we really need to move it forward in that way to structurally make change. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I was thinking, I think the city of Lake Oswego is trying to do some good stuff on DEI. I'm a member of the task force. I cannot talk about that because it's not ethical. They're doing a great job. I think they're doing things to reach out to BIPOC and to other folks, lower income citizens, in order to listen to their narratives. And I think it can help because once they have conclusion, the city will be briefed. But like most of my friends said, Melissa, Aaron, we and all of you recognize that a task force cannot help this. These are systemic problems. They go every day. We need to have an office of DEI in the city, like Melissa said, independent, that can monitor even the police practices. Somebody, because the police target mostly this population. So we need to have an independent office there that do that. I thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, it's time for our lightning round. The way this will work is we'll read a question and you will all respond by holding up a sign indicating if your reply is yes or no. There's no verbal response during the lightning round. Lightning 1. Would you vote in support of establishing a permanent diversity, equity, inclusion, and access commission or board? Lightning 2. Would you vote for asking the city manager to publish all police stops by ethnicity and reason on a quarterly basis? Yes or no? Lightning 3. Currently, Lake Oswego only permits short-term rentals of homes that are single-family detached dwellings. They are not permitted in multifamily or attached housing, including apartments, condos, or townhouses, located in a residential zone. Would you vote in support of lifting the ban on short-term rentals such as Airbnbs in multifamily condo or attached homes or rental homes? Yes or no?
Yes.
Lightning 4. Would you entertain giving limited lake access to community members who don't currently have access? Yes or no? Thank you, candidates. We will now take a 5-minute break. And I want to remind the audience that this is a 2-hour program that will finish at 8:30.
Willie, your mic is not muted.
Thank you.
Welcome. Sorry. Welcome back. For our next question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. We'll start with Rachel, then Emma, then Melissa, then Masen, then Aaron. The question is, the Lake Oswego City Council recently passed an updated sustainability and climate action plan. Lake Oswego has less than one dedicated person to do this work. What is your overall vision to reduce climate emissions so that Lake Oswego can meet its targets? And how will you staff and fund this work? Rachel, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Okay, there we go. First, I think it's very important that we find the funds within the budget to have a full-time sustainability manager within the city. If we're serious about climate change, we can't do it with a part-time person. We really need to put the dedication and the commitment to it. And we can do that to start by having a full-time person in that role. Second, I think it's really important, as I mentioned before, that we start to create a culture of sustainability within the city. And that means we need to empower our staff to look at their everyday jobs and determine how they are going to make their jobs more green and more sustainable in what they do. They're on the ground. They can provide fabulous ideas. So let's give them a little training and the ability to make those decisions. I think we also need to work to determine within our climate action plan how we want to move forward and the best way to do that. So we need to, again, start with the low-hanging fruit, and then we need to assess the areas that have high mitigation, that we can really make big progress in climate mitigation and start implementing those action plans. And we also need to work on educating our community. So it can't just be within the city, but how can we engage our citizens? How can we educate our citizens and how they can make their homes more sustainable? How they can take more, use their cars less. We need to really work with them to educate them how they can have a smaller carbon footprint. So again, it's going to take everyone. It's not just the cities. We need to work with our citizens. We need to continue working with our businesses and our schools in order to make a big climate impact for the positive.
So I'm very happy with all the steps the city has already taken. Switching to LED lights has really been effective for our street lights. And there's a lot of things like that that we can do. So I'm very much looking forward to implementing the plans that have already been made while on council with a couple other folks here too, once we're elected. And then of course, always being approachable and able to listen to new ideas, because our residents are some of the smartest people I've ever met in my lifetime. And it's just such a joy to live here and be with people who are so engaged in our community and want to see it be better. I see things with my kiddos. They're in 3rd and 4th grade at their elementary school, and they're always coming up with ideas. Even as a Girl Scout troop, one of our other moms had us recycling cell phones and batteries and markers and, you know, just things that can be done on a very livable grassroots basis. And so I think it's a lifestyle, sustainability, and the more we embrace it and make it just something we don't even think about, the better we're going to be. And so setting that example for future generations and really living out our lived values. So if this is a priority, it does need to be monetized. And so I've heard other people say we need to have people on staff for the city who are paid to do this work, which makes all the sense in the world to me. If we really say this is one of our values, we should also be proving it that way. So absolutely, I would support that, as well as any other measures that make sense for our community. And as we know, we have a lot of smart folks, and so just tapping into their ideas is really the way to move us forward. So I think as long as we just keep communicating with each other, acting as neighbors, that will be something that'll carry us forward.
So, when we look at our climate action plan, it doesn't exist in a bubble. It's actually supposed to be a living and breathing document that lays over our Parks 2025 plan and our comprehensive plan. And I know that it probably sounds like fantastically boring, but I've read all of those documents. And I think that what we have to do is have an integrated approach to all of this. Whether we are talking about a zero waste facility at our new city hall, or we talk about how we create community awareness days and energy audits within our city. We can do all of these things, but we have to decide that climate change is an emergency. And the bottom line is, until we accept that is the biggest existential threat to all of us, anything that we do is sort of just something to make us feel good, like we've taken some kind of action. And I will say that we do have some of the most fantastically capable and smart people within our city. And I know that together we can examine things and really do smart green infrastructure. We can look at ways to have a demolition and recycling program. We can look at ways to partner within our region and make sure that our city becomes a blueprint for what sustainability can be. And we really need to take a bold and decisive action and message that everything that we do in our city moving forward has to have an equity lens, a public health lens, and a climate action lens. And until we're willing to accept that and take those kinds of actions, nothing's really going to change. And I also think too, when we look at green development and infrastructure, we could put a task force together and at the same time examine our trees, right? Because every theme that you have when we're talking about our city and what we're doing is this disconnect between what canopy is, we haven't defined it, we haven't set goals, we haven't done all of these things. And so we really need to declare it, like I said, as the emergency that it is and partner with organizations throughout our region and city. Thank you.
Masen, you're on mute.
Sorry.
I'll start the clock now.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that there is no question that climate change is an emergency. We cannot discuss that now. It's like we have something coming to us in a deadly way. There was a warning with the fires we have. It's an emergency. We have to take it into account. All our policies should be centered on that. A climate change is an emergency, as systemic racism, both are things we cannot just continue to kick and say, oh, our kids will solve it. No, it's an emergency. What we should do is simple. We start in our homes. We have to walk the talk. It's not just city. The city should do things, but as citizens, what are we doing at home to reduce our carbon footprint? We have to start there. And like Rachel and Melissa said, we have to educate our population. I am for that. The city can do it. My school is part of a network that's called Eco School. Eco School is working with the children to reduce the carbon, to teach them the good habits. That's the things we should do. And it has to be in our curriculum because it's the existence of these students that are at stake. So we have to be sustainable. We have to work on a resource manager. Like, look at our trees. We value our trees. They are dying in Lake Oswego. There's no one at City Hall who is in charge, who's paid to do that. We should do that. These are things that we need to start. And the rest, the sustainability committee, and we have all those big things: transportation, walkability, bikeability in Lake Oswego, busability. All those things are possible, but the emergency is to reduce the carbon footprint, starting by each one of us. Thank you.
Many people on here are saying that there's no one at City Hall who's in charge of our sustainability. I'd like to apologize to Jenny Slepian, who's at City Hall, who's in charge of our sustainability efforts at the city level. She does a great job. She works very hard and she does everything she can because she cares about our community. Are there things that we can do as a city council to further those efforts and help her do her job? Yes, 100%. I stay up at night worrying about the earth that my kids are going to inherit someday, and it scares me. And I want to do everything we can. What I do at work, my corporate life, I work on and how our company communicates sustainability and environmentalism out to millions of people. As I said before, my network is deep with sustainability experts, and I want to leverage them. One of the things we could do locally is encourage the 500 homes on Lake Oswego to use the water rights that they have to sustainably water their lawns. It's a very simple thing to do that can pay dividends to our community. We are already developing and building according to the latest and most up-to-date environmental regulations. We need to continue to build new roads, repave new roads so we don't just spot check them every couple of years. That's not a sustainable approach. We need great roads, replace the roads. We need safe pathways to schools and sidewalks so we can incentivize our kids to walk and ride their bikes. We need to also create a rebate system to incentivize our families to recycle and compost. It's a very simple thing to do. If it's $5 off your recycling bill or your trash bill, let's do it. There's everything at our fingertips, and I want to work with Jenny Slepian to make sure that we can further those efforts in a meaningful, aggressive, and fast way.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Emma, then Melissa, then Masen, then Aaron, then Rachel. The question is, in your personal or professional life, what specific actions have you taken to reduce your environmental footprint? What will you do in the future? Emma, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Thank you. So for nearly a dozen years, I've been plant-based, meaning I don't consume animal products, and I try to avoid using them with clothing and in vehicles, things of that nature. And in my endorsement questionnaire to the Oregon League of Conservation Voters, I even quantified what that meant, how many CO2 emissions I've saved the environment, how many animal lives, obviously, but water as well. A lot of water goes into consumption of animals, so consumption rather. And so there's just a lot of things people can do on a very personal basis to mitigate some of the effects on our climate. As everyone has gratefully acknowledged, we do have a changing climate and we need to be good stewards of it. I am pleased that the Oregon League of Conservation Voters chose to endorse me, as well as the Pacific Green Party. And I think having things like just anything we can do to have green jobs, to have just things that really make sense for our environment and economy, because all of these things working together will ensure we even have a future to have our children inherit. My philosophy has always been, ever since I heard the idea of the Native American idea, where we're borrowing the planet from future generations. So again, we really need to be good stewards of it. Thank you.
So I try to be very intentional about the way that I incorporate green lifestyle into the way that I live. So I have a 4.5-year-old son. And I will say that ever since he was a child, ever since he was a baby, I've made, really intentional choices, from making his own food to gardening. Even though I don't have a green thumb to save my life, I really try to do it. We do plant trees every year as part of our faith and our New Year's celebration. We do that. I also really started at the city level to start to participate in the permit appeal process. So when we have large trees that are slated to be cut down, there is a group of activists within our city who actually work to appeal that permit process and sort of work to ensure that our canopy is protected. And also where my son goes to school, we have an amazing group of parents, and we set up a compost and recycle program for the kids, for the preschool kids, and really made it so that it was accessible to the actual classroom. And I now can see my son even just telling me things like, oh, you know, like that goes in the recycle or that goes wherever. And the other part too is, you know, being having that type of awareness, I think will actually impact how he chooses to live his life and how he chooses to incorporate those things. And I feel like I learned so much from him doing that. And also just the consciousness that the world is, in fact, belongs to all of us, and we have to take care of it equitably. So thank you.
Yes, as I said, you know, we have to be intentional on the idea of climate change, the idea of sustainability. I am an educator. I run a school. My school is part of the Eco School. We work with multiple schools to, you know, build the awareness in our schools. We have a compost, the lunch program. We have a lunch program so that we don't waste. When it's over, we keep the waste. We have a chicken coop. We work on things to teach the kids that we can live sustainably, because they're the future. They're the people who can do this thing, and we should start from there. And so in our curriculum, we have that. We are composting, we are reducing waste. I am very proud to be endorsed by OLCV and, you know, the Oregon League of Conservation voters. And what I told them, I think convinced them that our actions that we do at home, I have a garden, we eat on our garden until now, every day, we are using our garden until it becomes like winter. And we also, I am an activist on trees. I will fight as a councillor that, you know, some of our trees should be defended. 100-year-old tree cannot be replaced. We have to be, and I'm not saying that to be, yeah, we do, no, we are doing it to defend our environment. We have to be intentional on what we're doing. Thank you. So.
I mentioned earlier in my corporate life, I do a lot of work with our marketing teams on communicating sustainability and environment issues broadly around the world. I'm also very fortunate with my family to live on Oswego Lake, and I don't just talk the talk, I walk it. We are currently installing a pump system to bring water from the lake to irrigate our yard, so we do it sustainably. And I want to lead by example there. No one in our family uses single-use plastics. We've installed technology in our house to make sure that everything is run efficiently. We both drive fuel-efficient cars, and we recycle extensively in our house. I walk the walk. I do it, and will continue to do that as long as I am alive.
So professionally, I'm a building designer, and I have studied sustainability as it relates to buildings specifically. And I believe that the greenest building is the building that already exists. And that's one of the reasons why I focus on remodels and additions in my business and do very few new builds. Also, I am part of the Historic Resources Advisory Board in Lake Oswego. And one of the things that we did recently is we created an event called Your Old House Matters. And it was a fair where we invited vendors to come in and members of our community who live in older houses to educate them on how they can make their homes more energy efficient, and also how they can do additions and remodels thoughtfully. I also have partnered with one of our local sustainability efforts to do presentations within the community around sustainability and preservations and how those two initiatives overlap and work together. Personally, I live in a 1940s house, which my husband and I have worked to make more energy efficient. We've increased insulation. We have repaired wood windows. We've added storm windows, LED lighting, a new efficient HVAC system. We have a garden that we use that we use, that we plant, and we are able to have tons of tomatoes that last us through the year, and other herbs and vegetables. And I also work from home. My office is out of the house, so that helps to really minimize how much I'm actually driving. And then, of course, as Erin said, you know, those single-use plastics, let's reduce our use of those. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. We'll start with Melissa, then Masen, then Erin, then Rachel, then Emma. The question is, BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and people of color have been known to leave Lake Oswego for a variety of reasons, including harassment, children targeted in our schools, the inability to establish relationships within the community, being stopped by police, and not being welcomed in businesses. What would you do to support and retain BIPOC in the community? Melissa, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
I think first and foremost, we need to acknowledge and embrace the history of Lake Oswego, because if we don't understand where we've been, we don't understand where we can go. And I will say that having listened to our BIPOC community and built relationships within those communities and been really intentional about creating and empathizing and understanding for what their needs actually are, it's shown me that it's really not just a lack of representation. It's a lack of us wanting to incorporate this lived experience into a very intentional way that we treat and act and interact within our community. And one of the things working on the Racial Justice Subcommittee of the Clackamas Democrats, what that has shown me is that there are specific policy goals that we can make to target and support people in need. But at the end of the day, if we're not committed as a group to ensuring that people feel safe and welcomed and supported and belong in our community and give them space to actually do that, then we're not going to change the needle. We're not going to move the needle on anything. And also from my perspective, you know, we have to have a conversation around class. You know, we talk about racism and we talk about misogyny and we talk about xenophobia and all of these things, but at the end of the day, we have set up a system that has traditionally blocked marginalized folks from being able to see that Lake Oswego is in fact for everyone. And so until we're willing to deconstruct that and have a conversation around our class system and actually create opportunities and equitable access to our city for everyone, we will continue to create a space where people do not feel safe and do not feel supported. And at the end of the day, as white folks, we have to stand up and say that that is unacceptable, that we are not going to live in a community where people don't feel safe and children don't feel like they can get educated, and it's our responsibility to bring that forth as well. Thank you.
Yes, I think, you know, I'm starting with one of my favorite person, James Baldwin, who said that nothing can, that is, we cannot, like, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing, we cannot change anything if we do not face it. We have to face, I've been saying that in Lake Oswego, I am the candidate of love, of hope, because I come here, I live that. I am a person of color. I want people to walk on my shoes. My children are here. They've been harassed by the police. I have been harassed all the time here in Portland, somewhere else. It's our lived experience. What can we do? Like Dr. King said, like John Lewis said, we have to build the beloved community. We are better than that. Lake Oswego, we are wonderful people. All of you, look, all 5 of us who are running for city council, I know each one of you, we are wonderful people. We are the only one that can change this, but we have to face it. We have to know that there are people who are disenfranchised, that our children suffer in our schools. They're overrepresented in disciplining, in referrals, in exclusion. Those are things we have to face. We are better than that. I can't, it's hard for me to talk about that. I think I can be part of the solution. I want to tell my narrative to people. I want to have people tell their narrative. These are realities, and we cannot continue to live like that. We are better than that. And we are doing progress in Lake Oswego. I am a case that we are doing progress. I ran last time around, 8,000 votes. That's not 8,000 Blacks. So we are doing progress in these things. Thank you very much.
Lake Oswego has a racist history, and the state of Oregon has a racist history. Lake Oswego is not racially diverse, and neither is our state. Simply look at the census data. Early in this campaign, I wrote an article in the LA Review about how to make our community one of belonging. And I encourage you all to read it. Right now, people in our city do not feel like they belong, and I want to help change that. Our city council must make diversity, equity, a permanent lens in all our decision-making. We need to invite and listen to all voices, constantly be open to learning and improving. One way we can do that is we need to ensure our children are educated about the history of our state. We need to make sure that our schools hire teachers that represent everybody in our community, so our children don't have to go their entire young lives never seeing someone who looks like them. As a white male, I'll never know what it's like. But I do have, my close friend Manny Espinoza has told me a story as a Latino man in our community, walking the street with his dog, and people look at him like he's a landscaper. We can't have that. That is not appropriate. And we all, it's not about who wins the council seats. It's about all of us, regardless of where we are or where we sit, to be an example of that change. We need to attract more business owners and entrepreneurs that are of different races, so we can ensure people see other people that look like them and create that culture of belonging. We need to accept all people on the council. In early September, I met with Willie Poinsett to learn more about what we can do to improve our community and council, to be more inclusive. And as your counselor, I will continue to rely on her, respond to racism, and individuals with an expertise in this area to help guide my thinking and decision-making. I'm not gonna be able to do this alone, and I'm gonna rely on our community and those of you who may not win a council seat to help me do that.
So personally, I have been working to expand my knowledge beyond the very narrow and inadequate version of US history and our state and city history that I was taught. And I believe that it's understanding of our history that will bring us to be able to understand today better, and also to make positive change and significant change for the future for all humans within our community. I think we need to acknowledge that systematic racism exists. We need to acknowledge the implications of it, and we need to work together to make sure that we live in an equitable and inclusive society. And if we can do that, we will have more diversity within our community, because people will want to come here. People will want to be a part of it. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's going to take all of us to be involved and to be engaged, to have self-reflection. And I like to kind of quote Willie, we'll have a lot of oopses and ouches along the way, and we have to be open to that as individuals and as a city. And I think it's very important. We have wonderful resources that we need to listen to and help guide us through these changes that we need to make, so that we have a place where everyone feels safe, where everyone is welcome. A few things that I think we might want to explore is actually signing on to the Obama Foundation's Mayor's Pledge, which says that as a city, we will review our police force, that we will engage a diverse range of community members to share their experiences and share their stories, that we will report the findings and listen and seek feedback, and then we will reform as necessary based on that information. I think that could go a long way. I think we also need to work to do more diversity and heritage events within our city so we can have a better understanding of each other.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been part of the school district's advisory committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion since its formation. And in addition to my role within community engagement, I also got to serve on the committee for policy, where we created a policy to help students when they have something to report, because unfortunately our students are victims of systemic racism, and there's things that are just egregious happening in our school system, and those need to be remedied. And without language that tells the schools what they can do about that, there wasn't really a place to go before that was enacted last June. So I'm very proud of that work, but know that it has so much farther that we need to do. Sitting on that committee, that was under the leadership of Charu Nair, and she's on the board with the Urban League. And that's a community group that's very well known for people of color in our BIPOC community. And tapping into resources like that, in addition to, of course, our treasurer that is Willie Poinsett and others in the community, we really do already have a lot of resources, and we just need to really plug into those relationships. One of the things I learned when I was community engagement chair was that we have 20 languages spoken in one of our elementary schools. It happens to be where my daughters attend. And that just shows me that we already do have a rich community with a lot of different ethnicities. But for those to really stay in our school system and not feel forced out of the community, we need to embrace the differences and really come together. As someone who wasn't born in this country, I don't quite understand all the nationalism and things that seem to be a part of America, but I think it's something we need to overcome. And as white people especially, we need to stand up and call out people when they're doing racist incidents, and really help to lift all of society up by using our privilege. And so I know there's so much more we can do, and I look forward to serving.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. This question is from Lake Oswego students. We'll start with Masen, then Aaron, then Rachel, then Emma, then Melissa. By way of background, Lake Oswego's general fund pays for parks and recreation, libraries, police, fire, and more. Approximately 30% of the general fund of the city budget is allocated to the police department. In 2019, the City Council voted to increase the police department's budget by almost 6%, despite data showing a decrease in incident calls and non-emergency calls, and despite Lake Oswego being one of the safest cities in the states. The question is, some cities are having discussions about reallocating some police and safety resources to other priorities. Should Lake Oswego be having these same discussions? What would those priorities be? Masen, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very proud of these students as an educator. I think we have a bright future with these folks. So yeah, I mean, I have a problem with the budget in some ways because we can't even talk about it. Like the fire marshal, their budget is lowered. And I think Aaron and I will have time to talk with him about that. I don't understand that we lowered the budget for the fire marshal and raised the budget for the police. We can, like I told the folks, I am not going to vote to defund the police. It's not. The police is very important in our city, in our life, but we cannot give them all the funds when they're very important part of our city that needs funding. Like I give one example, the SRO. I am part of those who think we do not need police officers in a school. I am an educator. I taught everywhere in America. I taught in Africa. I taught in universities, in colleges, in middle school, high school. We don't need SROs. We don't need to put our money even to have, we can help the school system recruit as folks like counselors or give the budget to something. So I think we don't need to buy military weapons to our police. We do not want to militarize our police. The police is in France, for example, I know more. It's called des officiers de paix. They're peace officers. They don't go to war. Police don't go to war. So why do we buy war weapons for the police? Those are money that we can invest somewhere else. We have to give them the means to work. I am not here to say that, well, we are defunding them. No, the police has to have means to work like all other agencies of the city. But yes, thank you. I don't know. Yeah, thank you very much.
I believe that we need to run our city like we should run a business. You should always be looking at areas and ways to improve, to serve our community better. And I'm, as someone who specializes in budgets and finances, that's where I'm going to put my efforts, is how do we improve how we're already doing. I've talked with Dale Jurgensen, our great police chief, many times. He's a great man. He's doing the good work, and he's making the right decisions to make sure that our police department is evolving in the ways that our community wants them to evolve. For example, he has already created an adult resource officer for those senior citizens in our communities who don't feel like they're represented by the police department. He is an officer who specializes their full-time job on connecting regularly with our senior citizens. He's also created a mental health resource officer to deal with drug use and mental health in our communities, to help with suicide rates. So he's already doing the work, and he is very open to having the city council help him make the allocation decisions to make his department better. And I fully support that. I am not a police officer. I've never been a police officer. He has, and his team has. I'm going to bring them to the table as experts and have them tell us where they need to improve. I am all about giving them the training and the resources they need to do that. Our community wants a safe and secure community. That's what's going to bring young families here, and that's what's going to keep families here. And I will always support our first responders.
I think one of the assets of Lake Oswego is that we live in an extremely safe community, but we also need to realize that not all members of our community are having the same experience and the same interactions with our police. And that's why, as I mentioned before, I support the city signing on to the mayor's pledge to help with an assessment of the police force, which I know they're already starting to do with the council and the DEI task force. And I think it's important that this process is very transparent and that it looks at what is our police doing, what are their needs, and what are the needs of the community. Do we need more of our dollars being spent towards mental health and addiction resources? What can we do to help support our police so they can efficiently and effectively do their job and maintain safety within our community, but doing it in a way that is equitable to all of our members of the community, to everyone who lives here. I do think our police overall do a fantastic job. I appreciate the fact that during COVID, they worked to pick up prescriptions and drop them off to the seniors. I think was a fabulous service. In a very, we're living in a very uncertain and kind of scary time. So I appreciate those efforts. I think we need to continue looking at how we use our police and how they can be engaged and involved in our city. So I think with anything, just like with any business, you always need to be reviewing and assessing and saying, what can we do better? And are we allocating our resources to the right spaces, to the right places, to the right people, the right organizations? Are we getting the equipment? Are we buying the proper equipment? Do we need what we're buying? So I think we just need to assess what are our community needs, what are our wants, and how can we be better?
One year ago this week, Lake Oswego hosted the Multi-City Equity Summit. There were 5 cities involved, as well as 3 school districts and many different governmental agencies, including our police department. And they did a very good job, and I do commend the work they do, but I know that my experience, if I am pulled over, is not the same as someone who doesn't look like me. So I'm very aware again of that privilege, and I know we need to accommodate folks, again, in the interest of equity. So if you look at my website in the media tab, I've got many interviews about this topic, and my answer's been the same. We need folks to ride along who are more of a caseworker, who can help to manage and to really help to de-escalate situations that traditionally can become more escalated. And fortunately, a lot of studies have shown that rates of recidivism even go down, that folks are less likely to reoffend when police come to them, when they're not in uniform, when they're just out of uniform. It really helps to take away some of that triggering response. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done, and looking to other cities that have successfully done this is a really good way that we can begin. But again, I commend all the folks that I know personally through leadership like Oswego. I've gotten to know a lot of folks, and just in encounters. My kids are very familiar with the school resource officers, and while I enjoy them personally, and I think they've got good intentions, I think we do need to revisit that role, especially as it impacts our BIPOC community, and listen to what they would like done, because it does impact them more directly than people who look like me. So again, I just think getting voices from the community who are traditionally disenfranchised, that's the way to move this topic forward.
So this last budget cycle, yeah, our police department was given a 6% raise, and our fire department was given a 1.8% raise. And I think I've been pretty public about my stance on that. And I feel like we have politicized these things instead of actually worked at a community level to have conversations around what a policing in Lake Oswego and what the fire department within Lake Oswego actually means to us as community members. And the only way really to resolve that is a public safety board. And until we're willing to allow people from all walks of life who have these interactions be able to actually drive this and have a community conversation around it, I don't see anything changing. Also, on the Mental Health and Addiction Advisory Council for Clackamas County, which I sit on, we have been working tirelessly behind the scenes with Chief Jorgensen, for example, and the sheriff, for example, to have an emergency response unit for mental health. And I will tell you that there's not one chief and not one sheriff that we have spoken to who does not recognize that that's where funding is needed and where support for their staff is needed. Because here's the thing, being a police officer, a firefighter, a first responder is one of the most taxing and stressful jobs. And unless we are willing as a community to say, hey, we're going to show up for you and make sure that we are not passing the ails of our community onto you. We're actually allowing you to enforce the law, but allowing mental health and addiction services to be rendered to people. And in Clackamas County, you know, we have a robust drug and mental health court. Unfortunately, you have to offend first to have access to those things. But what we do show, and what data is there, is that this actually helps people with the recidivism rate and actually gives them access to services. So at some point, we have to have a really meaningful conversation about what policing and safety means in Lake Oswego and what it means as a community. Are we going to rally around our community members and understand that people of color do not have the same experiences that I do being pulled over? And are we going to allow them a voice and a space for that? And are we going to fund our departments for response appropriately based on the actual needs, not just a confirmation bias that having more police makes our community safe? Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. You may be happy to know that there are no more questions. It's time for your closing statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statement. We'll start with Erin, then Rachel, then Emma, then Melissa, then Miss N. Erin, please begin when you see the timekeeper's green background.
Thank you all for having me. This has been a very lively and great forum. I'm running because I'm passionate about a safe, healthy, and inclusive future of Lake Oswego that is economically and socially robust. I'm not running for council out of ambition for a higher office. Other cities admire so much about us and our tenacity in facing some of our challenges. And my focus is on Lake Oswego and the priorities. budget responsibility. I've been on the budget committee for 4 years. I know the ins and outs of it. And I'm going to bring a responsibility to spending that our city needs. I'm going to work tirelessly on upgrading our roads and pathways. I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure our kids have safe routes to schools. I'm going to make sure that all our parks are turfed so our kids aren't limited to being outside only 3 months out of the year. We're going to get a pool done. We're going to get our business community back up and running and successful. And I want to encourage all of you to vote. And I'd like you to vote for me. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
So tonight I have shared my ideas, but it's not about me. It's about what is best for all the members of our community and for our future. It's about our citizens and my ability and willingness to reach out, to listen, and to learn from all the individuals and groups that make up our community. In addition to the daily operations, the city has many issues that it must address, including climate change, COVID-19, diversity, equity, and inclusion, House Bill 2001. Solutions to these problems are not simple or easy. It's going to take teamwork, collaboration, and diversity of thought and ideas in order to find meaningful and impactful solutions. I am committed to bringing us together to ensure we are all able to prosper socially, educationally, and economically. So thank you for your time this evening. I'd be honored to have your vote, but no matter what, please vote.
Thank you for joining tonight. Time is the only thing that can't be begged, borrowed, or stolen. So I appreciate everyone who's logged on to this or watching the recording afterward. Again, you can read more about me or watch the videos at electemmaburke.com. There you'll see my thoughts about these issues and more. And I'll be speaking for more than a minute or 2 or 90 seconds on each of those topics. I've also said we should have police oversight committee, and have been saying that for about 2 years. Hopefully that's going to be the most boring board or commission to sit on because everyone is being accountable and they're just doing their job correctly. So I hope that as a parent in our public schools, you would like to see me on council. My kids are of the ages that I'd be able to spend 4 or 8 years, depending on how often you'd like me to serve. So I would appreciate your votes. Again, Emma Burke for Lake Oswego City Council.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and answer these very compelling questions this evening. You know, our values as a city are on the ballot this election cycle. My platform does call for bold, decisive change, not just structurally, but socially. I envision a city where we all live together and have the opportunity to thrive. Whether you're a barista or a COO of a major corporation, Lake Oswego is for everyone. Whether we examine the need for standing boards and commissions around DEI and public safety, or what our role will be in the strategic acquisition of green space to ensure we save the Stafford Hamlet, I am in this for the voice of the people and working families. For far too long, we have centralized power within a group of the usual suspects. And after this forum in particular, I think you can readily identify those folks. I cannot do this alone. And this is not about just one election. This is about our future and the hope we have within our greater community for our families, our neighbors, and our friends. I would be honored to earn your vote and work with you to not only keep me honest, hold me accountable, but make fundamental and lasting change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Really, you are an inspiration. I have to say that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa. I am very proud today to be here and have you, all my fellow candidates. I think at the end of the day is, what do we want Lake Oswego to be? I want to be there to build the beloved community. The beloved community is the only way out. Like my friend Aaron said, there's no lot of minorities, but even if there were one BIPOC, we can build the beloved community together, because Lake Oswego is better when everyone, each citizen of Lake Oswego is respected, is heard, and is loved. I am the candidate of love. I'm the candidate of hope I want you to vote for me because we are going there to make those changes that continue to make this community what it is, a great community. I love Lake Oswego. That's why I'm running for city council. Thank you.
And Lisa has just gotten back. She had her internet had dropped off, so she's going to finish up with the remarks. I was going to stand in if she needed me. Lisa, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you're on now, I think. Lisa,
Mary, why
I
don't
can
you go
read
ahead
the
and just
remarks.
go ahead and read the remarks, Mary.
Okay. Hi, standing in for Lisa. We'd like to thank you all for participating in tonight's forum. We're very grateful that you are all willing to engage and be responsive on issues relating to diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability. As a community, we are lucky to have such a strong group of candidates step forward to represent us and to serve in the City Council. If audience members have questions for the candidates, their websites are in the YouTube page for the video. There's also information about Respond to Racism and LOSN. Thank you. And Willie, it's yours.
In some cases, a forum like this culminates with endorsements. Our organizations do not endorse political candidates. We encourage you, audience members, to write letters to the editors following tonight's forum so that the broader community can get a sense for who you felt spoke well to the issues that are important to you. The next Respond to Racism meeting will be on November 2nd from 6:30 to 8:30. It's a virtual meeting, so please register on that website at respondtoracism.org for the Zoom link. We hope that you'll be able to join us. If you want to sign up for the Lake Oswego Sustainability newsletter and to learn about their activities, go to their website at losn.org. I'll say thank you. Please vote and good night.
Thank you.